Welcome to the Hope Natural Health Podcast. I'm Dr. Erin Ellis, your host. On this show, we discuss all things health, hormones, and happiness with a little side of this thing called life. Atavia Minoudis is a fully registered nutritional therapist specializing in IBS, or irritable bowel syndrome, bringing a valuable background in psychology and counseling to her practice. Her journey into nutritional therapy was deeply personal. In her 20s, she faced significant health challenges, becoming dangerously underweight and barely leaving her bedroom. Despite her love for food, her gut battled IBS, and when she sought help, she was often told, "There's nothing wrong with you," and simply advised to eat more. Determined to understand her own gut health, Atavia spent the next 3 years exhaustively studying nutritional therapy while working full-time. Now, having uncovered the truth about irritable bowel syndrome, she is on a passionate mission to share this knowledge with women everywhere, empowering them to become IBS and its debilitating symptoms. Oops, can I repeat that? That just did not sound right.
You want to take it from the top, or do you want to?
Can I just do like the second section?
Yes.
Do you want me to clap?
Please.
Determined to understand her own gut health, Atavia spent the next 3 years exhaustively studying nutritional therapy while working full-time. Now, having uncovered the truth about irritable bowel syndrome, she is on a passionate mission to share this knowledge with women everywhere, empowering them to overcome IBS and its debilitating symptoms and ultimately master their gut health. Welcome to the show, Atavia.
Thank you so much for having me and for that amazing introduction.
You're welcome. I'm excited to chat about this, but before we dive into IBS and all those things, tell me a little bit more about your background and your journey into how you got where you are today.
Yeah, sure. So I, as you rightly said, I suffered with IBS and a lot of other health issues like really bad anxiety, really bad acne, all the great stuff that you want in your early 20s, quite severely, and had not very good experience working with doctors who kind of just tried to throw pills at me or say that I, would just have to live with it or that it was nothing. And I'm quite stubborn as a person. So I just thought, no, there's no way. That's not realistic. I'm not living like this forever. So I decided to study myself to actually understand the body holistically. I have quite an extensive history in psychology and counselling, and was my initial kind of passion in life. And I just realised that bringing the two together is absolutely fundamental for any long-term health condition. And yeah, it really started as I'm sure most people's kind of journey start on a mission to kind of, recover my own symptoms. And then realising how many people are kind of struggling. I just wanted to spread that message and help people.
Awesome. So with your personal journey with IBS, particularly being told that there's nothing wrong with you, which a lot of women hear that, it's so powerful. So how did that experience of this medical gaslighting shape your mission to help other women? And what should women do if they're in this same situation, which I know a lot of women are? Yeah,
it really shaped my experience because I think as women, we are generally just not listened to as much anyway, especially in the medical field. So it just made me feel quite hopeless and quite powerless. And at first I kind of just thought, oh, I'm just going to live like this forever. And I can't believe that this is going to be my health and how I'm going to feel for my whole life. That can't be right. I was 22. And then the stubbornness kicked in. I thought, no, I don't believe that. There's something in my intuition that told me this isn't right. So it just made me way more determined to kind of prove them wrong and to really find out what was going on with myself. And I think in terms of the medical gaslighting, what I would say to people who are experiencing that is kind of like the analogy of knock at the door as many times as you can before you realize no one's going to answer and then go elsewhere. So your physician has a responsibility for your health in certain areas. For example, they need to rule out, is there anything like celiac disease, Crohn's disease? If they're saying there's nothing else, they've looked at all of that and there's nothing there, then that's not the right door for you to be knocking on. So don't take just because they're, in a position of power or authority, doesn't always mean that they're right. Maybe they're right within the scope of their practice. And yeah, in their labs, there's quote unquote nothing wrong with you, but that's not all there is, right? There's other areas and avenues to explore as well. So always listen to your, pardon the pun, your gut. Always listen to your intuition, always listen to what you feel is the right answer, because if you feel like something's wrong, then probably something's wrong. You're not just making it up, right?
Exactly. Yep. So you mentioned that you felt hopeless when you were diagnosed, or not diagnosed, but had all these symptoms. So a lot of other women, feel hopeless with facing, IBS and even any other chronic condition. So from your background in psychology and nutritional therapy, what role does mindset truly play in overcoming IBS? And where do you even begin to shift a negative mindset around gut health?
Yeah, great questions. So I've recently started bringing this into my practice. I've been practicing for years now, like 8 years, and this has been something that I didn't used to include. Typically, it would be mainly nutritional science, but in the past few years, I've really noticed the impact that mindset has, like specifically, purposely, consciously working on your mindset and your nervous system. Because if you have any kind of long-term health condition, especially one that you have been medically gaslit from and you don't understand and you've lived with for years and you've been in that hopeless place, you've almost like hardwired your perception of that and your nervous system to see it as threat and as danger. And our bodies can't move into a state of healing and reducing our symptoms until we feel safe. If you have your nervous system activated and you have a lot of stress, it's kind of like pouring petrol onto a garbage can fire and then trying to take some probiotics to calm down your bloating. That's not going to work. They're just going to be engulfed by the flames. So it has a really important place in, first of all, understanding your body and understanding how you're reacting to things and how that's making you change your beliefs around your physical health. For example, if you are constantly stressed and anxious about your symptoms, you're constantly going to be having a negative feedback loop in your mind and script in your mind that says that you're in danger. If you're able to shift that perspective to, okay, I don't understand my symptoms, but they're here, which means that there must be a cause, which means that there's an answer, then that can calm down the anxiety that's being caused. And then you can basically quieten your mind to help you focus on what you should be focusing on, which is how to feel better. And I can't remember your second question, sorry.
Like, where do you even begin to shift the negative mindset?
Okay. The first thing that I do with people is just to point out that it's there and just to sort of notice it, almost like you have like a rabid pit bull in the room. If you're constantly stressed and you need to see that pit bull's there and, maybe it's aggressive and you need to start to learn to train it. If you're ignoring it and you're not aware that it's there, you can't do anything about it. And so many people are on autopilot where they're just going about their lives. Stress is just their go-to response. They don't even realize they're stressed. You'll ask them about stress and they'll say, oh, no, there's nothing stressful in my life at the moment, but they don't realize they are just stressed. So just bringing that into awareness and your conscious awareness can help you start to notice that it's there and then notice what you need to start focusing on. So something I like to incorporate is like cognitive behavioral techniques where you'll start to notice your thoughts and then your behaviors on that. For example, your thoughts might be that your IBS is so bad and never going to get better. Then you feel stressed and you start restricting what types of food you eat. That's not going to be good for you long term in terms of your gut health. So just starting to A, notice that it's there, and B, start to reframe how you see it, along with a bunch of other things like nervous system regulation tools, like calming down your body as well as your mind.
Awesome. Well, that leads me right into like our next part of this, talking about the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is often mentioned a lot in holistic health, but what exactly is it? I know what it is, but let's hear from you how you can explain the vagus nerve and how does optimizing its function directly contribute to alleviating IBS symptoms and really helping that gut-brain harmony?
Yeah, sure. So yes, it's definitely something that's a hot topic and a lot of people talk about. The way that I like to describe it is it's sort of like the superhighway between your brain and your gut. So if you imagine when you were, let's take it right back to when you were a fetus and you were just like a bunch of cells and nerve endings. As you started to grow, these nerve endings basically elongated and your gut and your brain were connected. So a bunch of nerves and they're connected by these nerves. So you are literally physically linked, the gut and the brain, by the vagus nerve. And that is a nerve that runs through from the bottom of your brain through your chest cavity into lots of different organs in your body and into your gut. And essentially it kind of signals rest and relaxation and how to calm down. If you are someone who tends to go into stress state, which most of us do because we live in a world that is designed to keep us stressed, like phone notifications, emails, those just micro stresses, they're designed to get our attention, right? We need to be in some kind of level of stress. The more that we're in that stress state, the weaker your vagus nerve essentially becomes. So the message that it's sending to your body of everything's fine, you can be calm, you can relax, you can digest well, that tends to get quieter and quieter. And instead your stress response gets louder and louder. So it's almost like going to the gym and working out one bicep but not the other bicep. So you need to, look at which one you're working out. Is it the stress one, and is it the or is it the rest one, which is a vagus nerve?
Yeah, vagus nerve is very underestimated, I should say. A lot of people don't even really understand it. So what are some immediate practical strategies or simple vagal nerve exercises that women can implement today to start calming their nervous system and in turn soothe their irritable bowel?
Something I like to give people to do is something physical and practical that they can do day to day. So one of my favorites is like humming or singing, which activates the vagus nerve through the muscles in the neck. I personally love yoga poses as well. Poses like downward facing dog. That's really good because it activates the same muscles, activates the vagus nerve. But if you feel like, well, I can't be doing that when I'm walking around the grocery store, like trying to buy groceries, you can just focus on deep breathing, calming your breath down, just like humming, quietly maybe, or relaxing your muscles progressively. So doing a body scan and noticing where you're feeling tension in your body can be really helpful as well in helping to calm down your nervous system. And those kind of things you can do everywhere because no one's going to notice that you're doing that, right? It's not something that is obvious. So those are some things that I recommend to people in the first instance, but also making sure that you're consciously doing these practices consistently, because a lot of people will wait until they get to a place of really intense stress and then try and calm down. But really, again, we go back to the analogy of it being like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it's going to become. And you can improve what we call vagal tone, which is basically the tone of your vagus nerve. How strong is it? How resilient are you to stress? And the only way to do that is to work on your vagus nerve day by day.
Awesome. Yeah, humming. I mean, I can't sing worth crap, but I mean, anyone can really hum. Yeah. I find myself humming a lot in the car because I know a lot of people get anxiety with driving, and that's a really good way to just calm down the nervous system and help out that vagus nerve there, or stimulate the vagus nerve. Yep. So given that many women with IBS also experience hormone imbalances like painful periods or PMS, how does chronic gut dysfunction specifically impact our endocrine system, which is our entire hormone system? And what natural bridges can we build between the gut and hormone health?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot there to cover, so I'll keep it as simple as I can. I know you'll know a lot of this as well, being, in your speciality. But in terms of the gut, I mean, look at the gut as the powerhouse to your entire body. So synthesizing, excreting hormones. Hormones are good, right? We need hormones, obviously, but we need them in very specific levels. So if you have a gut that's super sluggish, maybe your gut bacteria is imbalanced, so you have a lot of pesky gut bacteria that shouldn't really be there, and you lack the bacteria you need to excrete get rid of feces and waste, your hormones are going to potentially be recycled. So where they should be excreted and thrown out with the trash, they're going to stay in your system, which could then lead to, for example, something like estrogen dominance, where you have too much estrogen compared to your progesterone or something like that. So if you have issues with your gut, you're not going to be sort of like synthesizing, metabolizing and excreting the hormones that you need. And also it really links to the liver as well. So our liver is obviously very important in, recycling hormones and things like that. But your liver and your gut are always talking to each other because those things can get fed back and forth. So you can end up with a sluggish liver if you have a sluggish gut. And in terms of bridging the gap, I would say there are a couple of things that you can do. Something I personally found very useful when I definitely had a really bad estrogen dominance was just simple things like making sure I'm drinking quality water so that I can actually, my bowel was healthy enough to excrete the stool that it needed to excrete, and having things like cruciferous vegetables, which can help to, break down the hormones that you need to break down. And just noticing the difference. So if you find that you experience really painful periods, or you get really bad IBS flare-ups and loose stools on your periods, noticing that you might be in a bit of an inflammatory state and your gut might be a little bit inflamed. So just removing things that are pro-inflammatory like sugar and dairy the week before your period can be massive. But just doing small changes like each kind of time you have a period to see how it impacts, because it can be quite overwhelming to start with. But yeah, they're my favorite things to start off with.
Great tips. Beyond, you talked about eliminating sugar and dairy before your period. Beyond just those dietary restrictions, like what are some less obvious root causes of IBS that you've uncovered with your clients?
Uh, Trauma, in a word, is
Yeah.
definitely this one. And I think it's possibly becoming more understood now, or recognized as a thing. But yeah, most of the people, I would say most people I work with, say to me, yeah, well, when we go through the symptom analysis together and looking at what happened around the time that your IBS triggered, or what was going on just before that, it tends to be trauma. And I know trauma is a word that's used a lot, and some people will assume that that means specific, instances of abuse, or like really tragic accidents like car crashes. It doesn't have to just be that. It can be things that basically you didn't have the capacity to manage at the time, and you weren't supported through. So abusive relationships, even if it wasn't physical abuse, if it was still an abusive relationship in some sorts, that can trigger it too. But any kind of instance of trauma or feeling really unsafe can trigger it, because a lot of us manifest that in our guts, and your gut has a memory as well. So some people say to me that they had their first instance of like explosive loose stools in a really stressful, quite traumatic period, but then it never went away. It's because your gut is almost remembering that it's had a traumatic experience, and it thinks that everything else is a trauma. So it's kind of overreacting, almost like your nervous system does. So that would be, the most kind of underestimated one I'd say I've seen.
Awesome. Yeah, traumas can wreak a lot of havoc. And it's interesting when we talk about trauma that a lot of women, say that they're okay from whatever it was that triggered them. And I'm like, are you okay? I'm like, have you really worked on the, the subconscious part of it? You could be, having triggers that you aren't even aware of. It could be a smell. It could be a color. It could be anything. So yeah, trauma's a doozy, and that's like a huge obstacle to cure, but also a big, symptom of why people can't get better is you got to work through it. It's not fun, but the outcome afterwards is so rewarding because a lot of symptoms disappear because you've worked through it. Yeah,
definitely. And I think it's also worth mentioning that a lot of the time of trauma, your brain it wants to keep you safe, right? So it'll make you think that it didn't happen, or you'll almost forget about it. But like you said, you mentioned subconscious. Your subconscious will remember, and you'll have potentially instances of being flared up at certain times or in certain situations, and you won't really know why that is. But for me, I used to have that when I went back to a certain location where like trauma happened, and I'd be like, wow, I'm not even consciously thinking anything, but my body is reacting. So the power of your subconscious and trauma is massive. Definitely.
Absolutely. In your experience, what's the most common misconception about IBS that you wish every woman knew, especially those who feel their symptoms are really all in their head?
Yeah, firstly, it's that that the symptoms are not all in your head. I think a lot of people tend to not necessarily believe that. Some people do believe that because they've been told it so many times, but some people also think that maybe they're overreacting, quote unquote, to it. But actually, no, like if you're experiencing it, you're not making this up, right? It's just because it's emotional doesn't make it imaginary. Like you can have an emotional reaction to it as well. But I think a really common misconception that I've seen is that it's about food. A lot of people just focus on food, but actually there are so many different elements to IBS. And the problem with IBS is that it's very nuanced. This is why it's quite difficult for people to understand, because there are different things to pay attention to, and it will manifest differently for everybody. So one person may have food intolerances and microbiome disruption and stored trauma, and the next person might not have stored trauma, but they're very stressed, but they also have inflammation in the gut. So it's very nuanced. So I think, a couple of examples I've given there, but I think one of them is that IBS has one quote unquote cure, but it doesn't. It's very nuanced for each individual.
Yeah, absolutely. So for someone who's been battling IBS for years and feels overwhelmed by conflicting advice, what are like 1 to 2 steps that you recommend someone take to truly understand and reduce their symptoms? You have this IBS freedom formula. Do you want to touch a little bit on that?
Yeah, sure. The first thing I was going to say is, if that's you, come and listen to my podcast, because I'll definitely break it down, make it more simple for you to understand. I think first thing would be just to pick one form of content that you want to follow, because if you're following so many different types, it can be super overwhelming, and everyone has a different methodology in IBS as well. Some people focus really a lot on FODMAP, some people on like probiotics. It can be quite overwhelming. So pick one person and stick with that. follow your intuition with that as well and what feels right. But with my IBS Freedom Formula, so that's the program I take my clients through, and that really is, it consists of the 4 main elements of IBS that I've seen undeniably in all of my clients, which is nervous system activation, the gut microbiome, food sensitivities, and inflammation. And usually when you have gut inflammation, that will come from a different cause. It doesn't just happen out of nowhere. It'll probably be from nervous system and too much stress or something like that. So if you're feeling confused, I would focus firstly on your nervous system and just start calming that down. Because if you don't calm that down, nothing else is really going to work as it's supposed to anyway. Because again, we go back to like the garbage can fire analogy. It's like pouring petrol onto that. You can't put out that garbage can if it's being, doused in petrol. So I would say start to focus on your nervous system, start to calm that down, and pick one kind of person you want to follow who feels right for you, and just follow their advice.
Yeah, start with Atavia. There you go.
Yeah, start with me. Why not?
Well, that was all the questions I had prepared. What did we miss about IBS that you want all the audience, my listeners, to know? Is there anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I want to add, if you're up for it, people listening, talk about it more, because the biggest thing about IBS that keeps people stuck is that it's stigmatized. Yep. And it's only stigmatized because we don't talk about it. So I can't tell you the number of parties I've gone to and said, who here has ever shut their pants, or like, who has IBS? Like, and people are like, oh yeah, I have. And then we just stand around talking for hours about it, and everyone's experienced it. So it doesn't have to be embarrassing. It doesn't have to be shameful. Mm-hmm. It's only human function. It's just gone a bit haywire. So I would say talk about it more. It doesn't have to be embarrassing. And if you feel so inclined, come listen to me and I'll talk about when I crap my pants on an airplane once. I don't mind. I'm open about it. So yeah, that would be my takeaway. Yeah,
same thing with menstrual health. It's another elephant in the room. There's nothing shameful about it. Every woman goes through it. Everybody poops. So you shouldn't be embarrassed about it.
Yeah, and you can kind of take away the power from something, I think, by laughing at it, and not kind of just like laughing at it and it's fine. You can also recover from it, but why not kind of take the power up by laughing at it at the same time?
I love that. Well, I'll wrap it up with one question I ask all of my podcast guests. What would be your best or favorite health tip that you could share with the audience?
My favorite ever health tip, which I discovered recently, and it's changed my life and changed a lot of people's lives who I've told to do this, is to never, under any circumstances, unless an emergency, look at your phone for the first half hour in the morning. Wake up, have your phone in a different room. Don't look at it for the first half hour, and I guarantee you'll feel like a new human. Because when you look at your phone, immediately you trigger dopamine, you trigger cortisol, and those two hormones become addictive. And through the day, you end up more stressed. Your nervous system goes into complete overdrive. You get really a lot of attention issues, like inattentiveness and stuff like that. So yeah, if you can go the first half hour without looking at your phone or any electronics, that would be my biggest health tip.
Yeah, I love that. Try it. I really need to do better at it. I really don't go on social media when I get up. I do brain activities, but I'm still on my phone.
That. Yeah.
So I want to try it and not do that and see. I'm like, I can do my brain activities later, like I play games and stimulate the brain. But yeah, I'm gonna try it because I know how powerful it can be.
Yeah, and I would also say something that I've started doing recently is doing mindfulness coloring in the morning, and that is so much more calming. And then you feel the difference throughout the day. Like, I woke up and I was super calm and I was really engrossed in this one thing I was doing. And then when you notice the difference of when I go on my phone, it's like, whoa, it really highlights your stress. So that would be a little work, I'd say.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. So Atavia has her new program, the IBS Freedom Formula. It's a 3-month program to understand and reduce IBS. So we'll make sure that we have that linked in the show notes, along with her podcast is Gut Reactions IBS. I was recently on her podcast. It's a great, short and sweet. I thought my episodes were short and sweet. Hers are even shorter. I love it. We'll have all of her information linked at the bottom of the show notes. So thank you, Atavia, for being on the show.
Thank you so much.
Have a great day. We'll see you all again next week. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment below. And if you haven't done so, please be sure to give us a rating on your favorite podcast platform. Join us weekly as we inspire you to be your best version. For more, follow me on Instagram at dr.erinellis. Until next week, you got this.